Joining us today is the director of the Sleep Institute at HaysMed. Back with us again is the director, Bryan Noone.
Good morning. You know, it's only 9:20. You did a nice job there.
Well, I'm out of breath, so you take over for the rest of the program.
I don't think that your listeners would appreciate that very much.
Take a nap now.
There you go. If you start snoring, I'll poke you with a stick.
I think we have missing one of our cohorts in the presentation.
Yeah, Jeremy is he's not with us this morning. I had texted him. I knew his wife had to go into work last night, and he was unsure whether he would be able to make it. But so I texted him this morning, and he did respond. And
so he is at home with the boys.
Well, he says he was in collusion with a rogue Russian group of defective spies. So that's probably his boys, I'm guessing. So
no doubt. Oh boy. All right. We should mention Jeremy Martinson is director of the sleep lab at HaysMed, technician there at the sleep lab.
Yes, he's responsible for the nuts and bolts and making everything work. He's the guy that stays up all night long watching folks sleep in the sleep center and is instrumental in getting people diagnosed and treated.
Which you know well. For about 7 years, you were in that position.
Yeah. Jeremy's we think he's part vampire. He's been a night shifter for I don't know, since I've known him, and we went to school together and graduated in '95. So he's a dedicated night shift individual, and you know there are people that can do that. I got to the point where I actually had shift work sleep disorder, where it didn't matter. You know, I could go to work, but I'd come home and do everything right. You know, wear the dark shades, going home, sleep in a dark, cool basement, did all that. And I'd go to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning, and 10 o'clock I'd wake up ready to go for the day. So, 2 hours, obviously that's it's just impossible to go back to sleep. Then about the time you want to take a nap, you got to go back to work. So I had to get off of that shift. It was wreaking havoc on me. But some folks are, they're made for it. Their rhythms are shifted, and they do better staying up late and sleeping during the day, and hallelujah for those people, because it's a rough job.
And there are a lot of them, overnight stalkers at stores, overnight truck drivers, a lot of things to make this economy run.
Exactly right. Shift work, I can't remember the percentage, but I'd say it's probably 20% of our workforce is shift. Man. And actually, when we talk about shift work is anything outside of the normal, say 8 to 4:30, 5 o'clock realm. So even those nurses that get up and go to work at 6 and work till 7, they're doing shift work. People that work, the evening shift, they're doing shift work. So it's difficult to organize your day and plan for good sleep sometimes when you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing at times you shouldn't be doing them. So it's good, but there are strategies that you can develop and work on to try to improve the quality of your sleep if you're forced to work those. And a lot of people at entry level, it's either that or don't work. So, you take what you can get. So, and that's what we try to do at the Sleep Center too, is also inform and educate, especially new nurses that are coming on, because a lot of times those new nurses, they're, at the bottom of the rung on the ladder, and they probably get stuck in a shift that may not be real conducive for their sleep. But we try to educate them not only in what to look for maybe some sleep issues in their patients, but also some strategies to make sure that they are keeping themselves well and healthy by giving themselves the opportunity to sleep the best on an off schedule.
Excellent. Well, their performance will be vastly improved.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to see that's a program you've put in place that's working.
Absolutely. So the education portion, and I'm still behind on it, but we're in the process of trying to develop a napping schedule for those night shift employees also. It's amazing what a 15-20 minute nap in the middle of that night shift can do as far as improve your alertness. And studies show that you decrease your risk for medication errors as a nurse that's passing meds. You decrease your risk for accidents while on the job, sticking yourself with a needle or those types of things. And also you improve your odds of being in a motor vehicle accident getting home from work by allowing yourself to get that little extra rest. And I think sometimes it's a mindset for a lot of employers to say, okay, let's allow our staff and employees to nap while they're at work. I mean, that's not the Western culture way of work, grind it out. It's oftentimes seen as a sign of weakness to go take a nap.
Even though half the world may be doing that.
Yeah, exactly right. Europe has caught on. Well, the siesta, they do it. So, but if you can improve overall outcomes, you can increase patient satisfaction and decrease their safety issues, and you can improve the satisfaction of the nurses that are working. It's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. So that's something we need to keep pushing.
And that translates to everybody else. I'm glad you said that, Bryan, because at the Sleep Institute at HaysMed, education is one of the primary parts of the whole process.
Absolutely. And it's one thing to diagnose sleep disorders, and there are plenty of sleep disorders, 85 to 100, depending on the literature you look at. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong during a person's sleep that can cause issues with daytime alertness and fatigue and those types of things. But really just educating people on the necessity of getting enough sleep and some of those sleep hygiene tips that we give to people to improve their overall environment to conducive sleep. That's where it's at. And we'll just keep preaching that. But especially talking to those maybe at risk, at higher risk populations. We frequently talk to high school students about their sleep. In fact, November, I believe it's 14th, I'm going to Fort Hays. And I'm talking to at least 3 different freshman seminar classes, so I'll be hitting at least 150, 200 Fort Hays freshmen.
Great.
Because that particular year, you get away from mom and dad, you're independent, and I don't have to do anything that I don't want to. And I remember as a freshman in college, I was probably lucky to get 5 hours of sleep. It's just terrible. So if we can address those folks and say, look, if we can improve your quantity, your quality of sleep, your studies are going to improve, your mood, your emotional health is going to improve, your relationships are going to improve, so we can just say
your sports performance,
athletic performance is going to improve, and all the literature's there. So if we can get to those guys and make a difference, even if you only get a few, I mean, it's at least that's a few that you can hit. So. Plus, it's obviously been well received because they keep asking me back, and usually people don't ever ask me back anywhere when I talk. So
I don't believe that for a minute.
Except you, but you're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, well, we have slots that need to be filled.
That's right. I work cheap.
And besides that, Brenda McMillan, our scheduler, is very adept at persuasion.
Yes, she is persuasive.
Bryan Noone, director of the Sleep Institute at HaysMed. Where's it located, and what? We don't need a sleep study necessarily, but I'd like some more information about good night's sleep. So where do I find it, and how do I get it?
Sure, absolutely. Always you can give us a call at the Sleep Center, what technically called the Sleep and Neurodiagnostic Institute at Hayes Medical Center. Our phone number is 785-623-5373, or you can just call the main line at the hospital, 785-623-5000, and ask for the Sleep Center or the Sleep Guy. And they'll transfer you up to our office. And we always welcome visitors just walking in. We're located on the 3rd floor in the main hospital campus. If you enter entrance C, which is the old main entrance of the hospital by the ER, just walk down the hallway, hit the elevators, come up to 3rd floor. Our office is in room 337. And we'd love to just sit and chat with you. In fact, I had a couple people stopping yesterday. Spent probably an hour just talking with people on some different aspects of their sleep and how we can maybe improve some things. And that's a big part of it. We always encourage you to talk to your physician if you're seeing your doctor. Talk to him about your sleep if you have sleep concerns, questions. But sometimes it doesn't take a physician. Sometimes it might just be. We can give you some sleep habits, sleep hygiene, different tools that we can give you to try to see if we can improve your sleep, maybe without the addition or adding sleep aids or medications or,
expensive medications.
Yeah, because, sleep is the best health you can get, and it's the cheapest thing you can do, and there's so many things hormonally that happen during sleep that improve or can wreak havoc on your health that and people don't realize that. Sleep's kind of an afterthought, and I always say it's the last thing we put on our day planner, and it should be the first.
Should be the first.
Should be the absolute first. And sometimes you just need to let go of some of that other stuff that may be encroaching on your ability to go to sleep and get quality sleep.
A couple of points with Bryan Noone, director of the Sleep Institute at HaysMed, one of which is daylight savings time. Thankfully, finally, hopefully, ends a week from tomorrow.
Yay.
Or actually Saturday night at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I wish it would go away forever and ever.
So fall back an hour, which means
you gain an hour of sleep.
Supposedly gain an hour of sleep.
If you don't stay up an hour later and ruin it. I always say this is a great opportunity to increase your total sleep time. Because you can still go to bed at what would be your normal time, where it might be 11, but now it's 10. Still go to bed, so you can maybe get that extra hour of sleep, because we're chronically sleep deprived as a society. We want to shoot for 7. 7 is kind of the scientific number they've come up with.
That's for adults.
Within the literature, for the vast majority of us.
Kids need more.
Kids need more. Toddlers 11 to 14, grade school probably 9 to 11. High schoolers still 8 to 10, probably closer to 9. But we all need that 7, and
and see how much better you feel maybe the next morning with that extra hour of sleep.
Absolutely. Well, I always ask people, I said, if you go through your week and you're getting 6 hours, and then on the weekend you sleep in and you get 10, do you feel better? Oh, yeah, I feel great after you. Well, maybe we should try to do that on a more regular basis and see if we can't make you feel better all the time.
Schedule adjustment a little bit there.
Exactly.
That's one of the points we wanted to bring up with Bryan. Another is that the offices are actually going to be closed for a while.
Yeah, we'll be closed this Thursday and Friday. We are all going and attending the Kansas Association of Sleep Professionals annual conference in Overland Park, Kansas City. Jeremy, our Russian rogue spy, is actually on the board of CASP, and he's helped put together this year's educational presentation. It's a 2-day conference, and basically just get researchers, practicing physicians, sleep technologists, just any array of topics regarding sleep disorders, do some case studies and those types of things, just to kind of keep abreast of some of the newest and latest literature out there and the research that's being done. And it's a great opportunity to rub elbows with other sleep professionals, because there aren't many, and it's we're kind of we're the weird guys at HaysMed. There's only like 3 of us, so it's like the sleep guys again.
No big lobbying effort.
No. We just talk the loudest and longest, I guess. So that's our claim to fame. But
so this coming Thursday.
Yeah. Okay. So and they always try to coincide that with the time change, and they also try to coincide that with Sleep Technologist Appreciation Week. It's usually that week. So this is my opportunity to tell my staff, Russell and Jeremy, that I do appreciate you very much. You do great work for us at HaysMed. And improving the quality of sleep in our community.
And indeed, that conference, how big is this? How widespread?
The CASP, the Kansas Association of Sleep Professionals, I'd say we get anywhere from 100 to 150 participants.
Are they Midwest primarily, or Kansas only?
This is Kansas. Well, it's open to anyone. And actually, this is the 15th anniversary. It's one of the older sleep societies in the country. So Kansas has been kind of ahead of the curve on maintaining a professional kind of atmosphere for the sleep profession and having a society. So, but yeah, every once in a while we'll do what we call a MOCAN, a Missouri and Kansas conference, so we combine the two, and that one's probably got 300 to 350 people that come. But the American Academy of Sleep Medicine promoted this conference this year. It was in their mailers, so we hope to always get several from the Midwest, Nebraska, and Iowa maybe, and in there. So. It really has traditionally been a very good conference.
Okay. And so that means the offices will be closed. The whole staff is going. So
right. Well, we're going to leave Carrie, our EEG technologist, behind to answer the phone, take the brunt of all the complaints, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. Well, it's time to talk about sleep with the director of the Sleep Institute at HaysMed, Bryan Noone. 625-1114 is the number to call if you have questions about sleep or how to get a good night's sleep, or maybe you don't need those sleep medications after all that are so heavily advertised. Maybe you can just do a little sleep hygiene that Bryan could talk to you about to improve your sleep situation. 625-1114 is the number to call. This is Health Information Please, brought to you by HaysMed and featured on KAYS, KVGB, Eagle Community Television, HaysPost.com, and 94.3 FM, KAYS, Hays, the App Store or the Google Play Store. And, by the way, speaking of situations, that daylight savings time does end next weekend. Actually, Saturday night before you go to bed, you can set the clocks back an hour, and we'll be through with daylight savings time for a little while. That's next Sunday morning, actually, at 2 a.m., late Saturday night or early Sunday morning. A little bit of weather. Beautiful fall day today. I don't think anybody has any bluer sky than Kansas.
It's beautiful.
And that includes Texas, by the way. So take that, Texans. It's a blue sky this morning with sunshine and 76 today expected. By the way, so far in Hays, thanks to our studio engineer Dave Cox for bringing us the weather information through the Agricultural Research Center, we've had nearly 7 inches of rain so far this October. Just October, mind you. And that's combined with that 300th inch of snow, which was last Sunday morning. I couldn't believe it. Snow in mid-October. Well, anyway, total moisture is 6 72/100 inches. Year to date, 34.44 inches. Almost incredible. So, this moisture amount puts 2018 as the 6th wettest year in Hays since records have been kept at the Agricultural Research Center with weather observer Joe Becker. In the past 125 years,
wow.
The 6th wettest year in Hays.
I'm going to plant a palm tree. Right in my front yard.
Oh, no kidding. Absolutely. All right. Well, here's something that I thought was interesting that I stole from the other stations around here this morning. Maybe you heard of this on your favorite radio station this last week. Everybody knows exercising is important, but a brand new large study finds that not exercising may be more harmful to your health than smoking. Now that was eye-opening.
Wow.
This was a research at the Cleveland Clinic. This is a
fairly reputable
organization there. Studied over 120,000 patients. So this is a big study, as you well know. From 1991 to 2014. They put them in a treadmill test and later recorded mortality rates. There was a clear connection between a high level of exercise and a longer, healthier life. One of the researchers said being unfit on a treadmill, or in an exercise stress test has a worse prognosis as far as death than being hypertensive, diabetic, or a current smoker. The researcher went on to say, we've never seen something as pronounced as that and as objective as this. They also found that ultra-exercisers, people who really tend to exercise a lot, overdo it, some of us would say, do not face a higher risk of death.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
It really is. I think kind of subjectively, you can anticipate or think that, I should exercise, that would improve my health. But to sit on the couch and increase your risk of death, premature death, more than diabetes or smoking, I mean, that's pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
But, we've long said that exercise, as far as a treatment for even sleep, is excellent, especially aerobic exercise. It can decrease your sleep latency, meaning it takes you less time to get to sleep. Increases your slow wave sleep, increases that deep sleep that you get. And here's a thought. The more deep sleep you get, the more human growth hormone is released, which is responsible for physical repair of your body and tissues and oxidative stresses and damage that happens. So kind of makes sense that maybe if you exercise, I think exercise is important, but I think part of that is probably the sleep quality that those folks are getting too.
And Bryan, you've told us for years that sleep is the repairing mechanism of the body.
Yes.
It's also the healing mechanism. And
absolutely.
In case you do get a cold, or unfortunately if you do come down with a flu.
Yeah, absolutely. The old adage, you're sick and tired, no, there's a reason. Your body wants that sleep to release those hormones, chemicals. It boosts the immune system response, and that's why people who are chronically sleep deprived often get sick easier. Their immune system is compromised due to that lack of sleep, and they are more susceptible to those viruses and bacteria, and it just makes it more difficult to ward those things off. So huge correlation between adequate sleep and overall immune system health, too.
We'll talk about a phone call that we had last week during our cardiology visit that we'll talk about later on, but let's get to the phones this morning for health information, please. And Bryan Noone, Director of the Sleep Institute. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I did a sleep study, and I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and they put me on a CPAP machine. And this has been probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I never get that feeling that I've slept well while I'm wearing it. In fact, I actually feel like I sleep better when I don't wear it. Is that common or uncommon or what?
Stay on the phone, caller, in case you want to ask a follow-up question for Bryan, or if he has a question for you.
Right, I got a question right off the bat, I guess. You were diagnosed 4 or 5 years ago. Do you know what the results of your study were? Did you have severe sleep apnea? Did they say it was mild? Do you remember a number that they gave you?
I don't remember the number. I do remember, though, that when they said it, it seemed extreme, but they called it mild.
They called it mild, okay. And I guess we'll give you a little history. So what we classify sleep apnea as is mild, moderate, severe, or you don't have it. So, and what we use is what we call an apnea-hypopnea index. So what we do is we count up all the breathing events that causes an oxygen level dip and an arousal from your sleep, and we count all those up, we total them all, we divide by the total number of hours that you slept, and that gives us an index. So say you have an AHI of 10, that means on average per hour that you're asleep, there were 10 times per hour that your breathing didn't keep your oxygen levels up and keep you where you needed to be. So 10 is in the mild range, 15 to 20, moderate range. Once you get to 40 times an hour, you're severe. So a lot of that is dependent upon how bad you were to begin with. The second question I would have is how many symptoms did you have prior to getting your sleep study done? I mean, did you find yourself really sleepy during the day? Did you find it hard to stay awake? If you sit down to watch TV, read a book, do anything like that?
Yes.
Okay, so you were pretty sleepy then. So
right, and plus my wife complained quite a bit about my snoring and said that I would quit breathing in the middle of the night.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, the only thing that I noticed that I sleep better is that she's not waking me up to tell me to turn over.
You're not getting the elbow to the rib.
Right, that's the only thing that's improved. Yeah.
Okay. So you don't necessarily feel that you are any more alert when you wear your CPAP currently. You still have a hard time staying awake if you sit down to read, watch TV, drive.
Exactly. And I have friends that they wear the CPAP also, and they take theirs with them when they leave the house to be overnight.
Right.
And I'm just like, I don't feel that. I'm not getting the restful sleep that they are so happy about.
Right. And
I'm jealous.
And that's not what you're describing is not totally uncommon. I don't know. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking you?
52.
52. So if this was 5 years ago, do you think that this might have been an issue going on for 20-plus years prior to you being diagnosed? Had it been an issue, the stuff?
I think it probably was an issue, but it may have, of course, gotten worse over the years.
Right.
But it was only a few years before I did the sleep study, and I say a couple, 3 years, where she was started really complaining about the snoring.
Well, there is a subset of people that even after you treat their sleep apnea, if they've experienced it for a long time prior to that, they may never regain that energy level, that lack of sleepiness. Even if their sleep is good, they may not get back to that alertness level pre-apnea, sleep apnea. There is some literature out there saying that if you keep with it and grinding with it, that those areas of the brain will repair and that you can get some of that alertness level back. But here's another thing that I would be concerned about is sometimes we have what we call crossover. People rarely have a sleep disorder by itself. It's rarely a single entity. So some people have crossover. They may have narcolepsy on top of sleep apnea. So you may treat the sleep apnea and everything looks great as far as your sleep quality is at night now. Your breathing looks great, but you might have a neurological component of excessive daytime sleepiness that's still causing an issue. Before we would jump through all those hoops, though, I'd say, have you gotten a download on your machine to make sure that it's actually adequately controlling your sleep apnea?
I've not done that in quite a while. I did do it a couple of times there, maybe in the first year.
Okay.
And report it back to the doctor, and they said everything looked fine to them because I can't remember exactly. I was having some complaints about it, and they said, well, from what they're seeing on the download, it looked good.
It looked good. Okay. Well, I would start with that. I mean, sometimes sleep apnea, when we diagnose it, I always tell people it's a snapshot. It's one night out of thousands that we're looking at. And, sometimes we can miss the mark. We can treat you good in the lab that night, but we might not be getting you all the time. And especially if it's been 4 or 5 years, if you've gained a few pounds, maybe it's just not adequate enough on the pressure side of it, too.
Maybe the mask itself
Absolutely.
Could be
mask could be leaking. It could be, a lot of different things. But you sound more like a guy that was compliant, that was wearing it regularly, that still doesn't feel that alertness level. What I would suggest is get the download. I'm happy to look at it for you, with you. Just give me a call at the Sleep Center anytime, and we can get that download and kind of go through some things and talk through that. And then it might be worth seeing a sleep physician again saying, you know what, I do this and I'm wearing this regularly, but I'm still not feeling adequately rested. How many hours a night are you saying are you getting of sleep? Are you getting enough at night?
Yeah, I generally go to bed around 10 p.m. and I get up at 5.
Okay, so you're getting 7. So that's pretty good. The other thing I would try before you do anything, obviously make sure the CPAP is adequately controlling your apnea. Second thing I would do is say increase your total sleep time per day by, for the first week or two, try 15 minutes. Don't try to add an hour on there, but just try to get an extra 15 minutes a night. Just see. The other thing I might suggest is to start keeping a sleep diary. Just kind of write down, this is when I went to bed, this is when I got up, I was up during the night to go to the bathroom once or twice, and I napped this long. Are you napping? Are you purposefully napping during the day to try to get feeling better?
No. There's times I may nap on a Sunday afternoon, but that's about it.
That's about it. Okay. So, and then the other thing too, the other reason to see a physician, and once we make sure that the CPAP's controlled, you're getting adequate sleep, is if you're on any medications, because a lot of different medications can cause issues with hypersomnolence, excessive sleepiness, those types of things. Has your thyroid been checked? Sometimes the thyroid level being out of whack can still cause issues with that. So there are some other things that they would look at and probably order some lab work just to verify that things are in line. But what you describe is not totally uncommon, and there is a subset of patients with sleep apnea that just never quite feel like they are still getting enough sleep. They're not as alert as they want to be. So But there's other things they can do. You know, if it's more sleep testing, which is usually the last scenario that we would go to, is where you'd actually come in for another sleep test. But
you'd be glad to look at the data.
Sure,
from
absolutely,
the
absolutely, and at least hopefully give you some direction and see what we can do.
Okay. All right. Well, I will try to give you all a call and see if I can't get something set up to come in and talk about this, and I'll bring my little chip, whatever that thing's called.
Yep, sounds good.
Maybe bring the mask too.
Yeah, bring the mask. We'll take a peek at it and see if we can make some adjustments there. But the wife's not complaining that you're snoring or anything anymore.
She says that there's sometimes that even with the mask on that I will start snoring.
Okay, so then that means it's probably the pressure's not adequate. So that's part of it, I'm guessing. You shouldn't be able to snore around that if it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, there's I have bad sinuses. And
okay.
I have the full face. It covers my nose and mouth. And if my there's times where my sinuses basically clamp shut when I put that mask on.
Okay.
So I'm breathing through my mouth pretty much all night, which is waking me up because my mouth gets so dry.
Gotcha.
That it wakes me up.
And one more thing, you got a humidifier on that machine?
I do.
Okay. And this is, I'm not saying you do it, but a lot of people that have issues with congestion and nasal problems, one of the things we find a lot of times is people, obviously they recommend distilled water in that humidifier, but making sure that you're emptying it daily and letting it air dry. A lot of times people will just keep topping it off, adding water. What happens is you get mold spores, you get all these other things, and people put it on and can breathe pretty good for a while, and then within 2 hours, oh my gosh, I'm stuffed up. So a lot of times it's just cleaning that humidifier really good and making sure you're emptying it and air drying it every day, and then cleaning it at least once a week, probably, hot soapy water in the kitchen sink, and letting it rinsing it and then air drying it. And a lot of times things will clear up just from simply keeping that humidifier clean and dry.
Okay, all righty. Yeah, because I'm bad about that. I just like I said, I'll top it off at night and go and put it on and go to bed. So.
Yeah, and that's a common thing that we see, and it doesn't affect everybody like that. But people who are sensitive to it, I remember we had one gentleman in. He would complain of chest pressure. Even he'd wake up at 2:00 in the morning and his chest would feel tight and it would itch and burn. And got doing a little research with him, and he was just topping off that humidifier and we just got him a whole new humidifier chamber and said distill the water, empty it every day, let it dry, and he never had another issue. So sometimes
sensitive
it's
to bacteria or other
sometimes it's those little simple things.
Spores in there.
Yep.
Okay. That it, caller?
Okay.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
You bet. Thank you.
That's what he's here for. Bryan Noone, Director of the Sleep Institute at HaysMed, answering questions at 625-1114 or 785-625-1114. Health information, please. Brought to you by HaysMed on KAYS, KVGB, Eagle Community Television, HaysPost.com, and the iTunes and Google Play apps at 94.3 KAYS. Over $8 billion will be spent on Halloween.
Wow.
$8 billion. 600 million pounds of Halloween candy. The research says that equals 6 Titanic ships. 600 million pounds.
Huh.
And how many pounds of Halloween candy for the average person? 3.4 pounds.
Wow.
The average trick-or-treater is going to eat the equivalent of 3 cups of sugar. My goodness.
Huh.
Oh, and by the way, your kids, they would need to trick-or-treat for 180 miles to burn off what they eat on Halloween night.
Well,
and
I just had this vision of me in the car, chasing them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then try to get them up the next morning and get them around.
No, I would say, Mom, Dad, limit that sugar amount that night, and because Thursdays. But do they have school Thursday? I don't think they have school Thursday.
Is it an in-service day?
It might be. I don't know.
Okay, well,
somebody that knows better can call and tell us. But
if that's the case,
I feel sorry for the teachers.
The teachers lucked out on that one.
Yes, they probably planned it accordingly.
Teachers, but goodness gracious, that's amazing. And what's the top stolen Halloween candy out of the bags? Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
That's what I'd steal.
Almond Joy is second.
No.
Snickers third. Butterfinger.
No.
Kit Kat.
Yep. I'm an every other guy.
So, trick-or-treaters, keep that in mind. Keep those Halloween candy bags away from the Noone household there. All right. So, and, of course, safety reminders, as always, for Halloween. But, some of those interesting features that Halloween brings every time. 7,000 calories consumed on Halloween night by children. No wonder they're bouncing off the walls the next morning, or even trying to get them to bed that night. That's pretty amazing stuff. Okay, last week, we have time for this, I think. Last week, we had a call while our cardiologists were here. A woman who called in for her husband, obviously, of course. That's what happens.
Yes, we don't call in.
No,
we don't have problems.
Men do not call in most of the time. Although our first caller certainly did make that
statement. Kudos to him.
Absolutely good. And boy, did we learn a lot from his call, I'll tell you. Okay, back to the question. She said her husband just simply cannot wear the CPAP mask.
Okay.
And I said, listen this week, because I have the CPAP mask expert who's coming in to tell you about what to do to get a good night's sleep with a CPAP unit.
Right. So I'm assuming, since they were calling into a cardiology show, that he has some cardiology issues.
He has some other health issues.
In addition to the sleep apnea. And we know that treating sleep apnea can improve cardiac function. Obviously, the two are tightly woven together in terms of overall cardiac health. So it's not uncommon. We hear a lot of people that just cannot tolerate a CPAP mask. And a lot of times when I chat with them, they are unaware that there are literally hundreds of different types of masks out there. Second of all, we'd want to look and see what kind of mode his machine is in. Is it straight CPAP? Is it what we call an automated positive airway pressure? Is it an APAP? It automatically adjusts? Is it a bi-level therapy where the inspiratory and expiratory pressure are different? There's a bunch of different things we can look at as far as that goes, and there's some settings that we can tweak to maybe make it feel a little bit more comfortable as far
humidity
as
settings.
Humidity settings, the expiratory pressure relief, where actually when you exhale, the pressure will drop a little bit, so it doesn't feel like you're pushing so hard to exhale. A lot of times that's a big complaint. Sometimes it's a matter of people just having a little claustrophobia with the mask. It may not even be necessarily the pressure from the machine, but actually the mask itself causing the issue. So a lot of mask options available. So we can definitely work with him in regards to finding something that hopefully would be more conducive for him to wear and be comfortable with and sleep with. The other thing is people who have a hard time wearing it, I always say start with it in the living room. Wear it while you're watching TV, reading the newspaper. And start with just the mask. Don't even put the machine on. Don't put the air behind it. Just wear the mask. Get comfortable with that. And then if you get comfortable with that, then add the machine. Again, watching a movie, reading the paper. If you can watch about the length of a movie and you're comfortable with it, it's not bothering you anymore, then it's okay. It's time to move it to the bedroom at that point. The other thing to check would be to make sure, again, obviously just like the last caller, to make sure that the pressure is adequate for him, that he's getting what he needs. Because if you have sleep apnea and the CPAP's not doing its job, you're still going to feel like you're suffocating at night, and it's not. It's going to be a very unpleasant experience for you. So verifying that. So, and then there's some people that just flat can never get used to CPAP. And then we look at, well, depending on the severity of his sleep apnea, there's other options available. There's oral appliance therapy that we can send you to a dentist and get an oral appliance fashioned that will open your airway and do maybe not as, it's not going to be 100% as good as CPAP. That's kind of the gold standard, but it will vastly improve your overall breathing. The other option is We used to say surgeries for some people, but not so much anymore. And then lastly, there's actually an implanted device called, I believe it's called Inspire, and it's like a pacemaker. So, and they actually, and for a subset of people who are intolerant of CPAP, University of Kansas in Kansas City does these, and we can refer you to them. And they'll go through some situations and look at your airway, see how your airway collapses. There's some different things that you need to meet some standards and criteria for. But basically, you get this implanted device. You got a remote control. You turn it on when you go to bed at night. It stimulates some nerves in the hypoglossal area of the tongue and stuff, and it stimulates those to where your airway doesn't collapse. And it's very, very effective treatment for sleep apnea. And then you wake up in the morning, you fire it, turn it back off, and go about your day. And they've done, I don't know how many they've done. We heard a lecture on it maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and they've done 30 or 40 of them. It's a fairly new procedure, but it's a great option for those folks who are just totally intolerant of CPAP.
And for further questions, information, or some good advice, literature as well, the Sleep Institute at HaysMed.
We are on the third floor, Hays Medical Center, office 337, phone number 785-623-5373, or HaysMed's main number, 785-623-5000. And
Bryan Noone is director of the Sleep Institute. Jeremy Martinson sometimes will join us, hopefully next time.
I believe it when I see it.
Yeah, stop that. Our guest today on Health Information Please. Diabetes Awareness Month is coming up. We have registered nurse Todd Walburn next time to talk about diabetes awareness on Health Information Please.